I never thought becoming a mother would feel like this, both the most beautiful, precious experience of my life, and at the same time, one of the most overwhelming. My daughter is only 3 months old, and every single day has been a mix of exhaustion and joy. I've been lucky with my supply, and she's been exclusively breastfed since birth. I work so hard to make sure of that, and it's something I'm deeply proud of. Every feeding, every moment where she curls against me and looks into my eyes, feels like a bond that no one else can understand. From the very beginning, I made one thing clear: I didn't want anyone but me or my husband feeding her. That wasn't up for discussion. Feeding her is not just about nutrition, it's about safety, about comfort, about trust. My husband respects that, and thankfully he helps by taking the occasional night feed when I've pumped in advance. But beyond him, I don't want bottles passed around, and I don't want anyone else inserting themselves into that role. Most people accepted this boundary without question. Friends, cousins, even my sister-in-laws nodded when I explained it. They may not fully understand, but they respected it. Everyone except my mother-in-law, Linda. She has always been polite on the surface, but I could sense a subtle disapproval simmering beneath her carefully controlled words. A glance here, a sigh there, a judgmental tilt of her head when I mentioned exclusive breastfeeding. She never said much directly, but her presence carried the weight of unspoken opinions. I brushed it off, telling myself she just wanted to bond with her granddaughter. But in my heart, I knew it was more than that. It all came to a head during my nephew's birthday party. Clara, my sister-in-law, had invited everyone over. The house was buzzing with children's laughter, balloons taped to the walls, the smell of chocolate cake drifting through the air. Cousins ran in the backyard with squeals of joy while the men chased them, tossing balls and joking loudly. Inside, the women gathered in the living room, swapping stories and passing my baby from one pair of arms to another. At first, I was fine with it. I stayed close, watching as my daughter's little cheeks flashed against different shoulders. But then, I saw the telltale signs. Her fussing. Her restless movements. And finally, the sharp cry, the hungry cry I know better than anyone. My body reacted before my mind did. Milk let down, my chest ached, and I rose from my seat, moving to take her. But then Linda pulled back. Instead of handing her over, she tightened her grip on my baby and looked at me with a strange mix of defiance and entitlement. "Go make a bottle," she said. I froze. My hands hovered, my mind whirred. Did she really just say that? I tried to steady my voice. "No," I replied, "I'll take her to the guest room and feed her." Before I could move, Clara jumped in, almost too quickly. "I have some formula in the kitchen," she offered, already half rising from her chair. "I'll make it for you." Panic surged through me. "No," I said firmly, louder this time. "She's never had formula. I don't want her to get sick." I reached out and pulled my daughter back into my arms, holding her close. That's when Linda sighed. A long, exaggerated exhale, followed by the roll of her eyes. "Why don't you just pump," she muttered, "so I can feed my baby?" My heart stopped. Her baby, I must have looked horrified because one of my other sister-in-laws, maybe sensing the tension, quickly placed a hand on my shoulder and guided me out of the room. I clutched my daughter against me, storming toward the guest room. My mind raced with disbelief. My baby? How could she say that? I sat on the edge of the bed, nursing my daughter in the quiet. Tears stung my eyes as I stroked her soft hair. The voices outside faded into muffled laughter, but I stayed there, hidden away, until the sound of footsteps approached. It was Clara. She stepped into the room, arms crossed. "Don't you think it's a little selfish?" she asked coldly. "You could have just pumped a couple of ounces for Mom." Her words sliced through me. Selfish? For feeding my own baby the way I chose? For protecting her health and our bond? I wanted to scream, but all I could manage was a tight, trembling reply. "I'm not a cow. I will never pump for anyone. She is my baby." Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. She shook her head and walked out, leaving me in silence again. The rest of the party blurred. I stayed in that room until it was time to leave, too shaken to return to the noise and the watchful eyes. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again and again. Messages from Linda. Messages from the wives of David's brothers. Each one laced with judgment. You're being unfair. You're hogging the baby. You're stopping Linda from bonding. You should have pumped before you came. Then you wouldn't have to hide away. But the one that cut the deepest came from Linda herself. You're selfish with my only granddaughter. It's not fair that I can't even feed my baby. My hands shook as I typed my reply, she isn't your baby. Then I turned my phone to do not disturb. At first, there was relief. Then came the guilt. I stared at the window, my daughter asleep in her car seat, and wondered if I really was being cruel. Was I depriving her of bonding moments with her grandmother? Was I being controlling? Or was I simply being protective? The truth is, there's a memory that has haunted me for years. When I was a child, my little sister nearly died. She choked while being fed by our great aunt, who wasn't holding her properly. I can still remember the panic, the screaming, the rush to the hospital. I was young, but the images burned into my brain. That kind of fear doesn't just fade, it shapes you. It taught me that not everyone knows how to feed a baby safely, and the risks are terrifyingly real. Even now, when David feeds her, I sometimes hover, my heart pounding. So no. I wasn't being selfish. I was being cautious. I was being a mother. But try explaining that to people who only see a grandmother longing to hold a bottle, or a group of in-laws who already think you're difficult. The car ride home was quiet. David hummed along with the radio, oblivious to what had unfolded at the party. I stayed silent, not wanting to weigh him down with more conflict. His relationship with Linda was already fragile. They'd had a huge fight years ago, one that nearly broke them apart. I didn't want to be the reason it fractured further. So I carried the guilt alone. That night, as I lay in bed with my daughter sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside me, the weight of it all pressed down. I thought about Linda's words, about Clara's judgmental glare, about the text still waiting on my phone. And beneath all of it, I thought about the way Linda said my baby. The entitlement in her voice. The possessiveness. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain, no matter what anyone said, no matter how many texts came through, no matter how many people called me selfish or cruel, this was my daughter. My responsibility. My bond. And I would protect her, even if it meant standing alone. Because I am her mother. And that will never change.